All right. Non-pushy sales with LinkedIn. Build trust and find qualified prospects in just a few minutes each day. That's exactly right. That's exactly what we're going to talk about today. I want to start off with a story about, and it's funny, we were just talking about this. I used to work for Bell Laboratories, and back was Lucent. And I remember very clearly, this was like in 2002, I was standing at the window, and we had just built this grand new big office. And it had all this ergonomic furniture, and it had all this chrome, and all this fresh carpet. And if I walked out my office, it had the sweeping view of the curve of the building, and it just spoke to like innovation and inspiration and success and all those kinds of things. But in reality, I knew down the hall in the conference room, there was this big whiteboard, and there was a list of names of all the people that worked for me. And many of those people were people that later on that afternoon, I had to make a decision what to do with them. Decisions that would like forever change their lives. And it turned out to change my life too. Because even though I didn't quite know it at the time, Lucent stock had been a high of $81 and it had plummeted to $2.50 a share. And it wasn't a rising star. It was a comet entering the atmosphere and disappearing. And this building had been built on kind of hubris and ignorance. They didn't truly understand how to become a competitive company. And soon I was talking people into retirement who didn't want to retire, people who were too young to retire, permanently laying them off. Then I was demoted from manager to engineer. And then in 9 months, they fired me. And I was on the streets. And that's a company that I had been working for 23 years. I'd started out there right directly out of college. So, and I hadn't, and even though I have a master's degree in computer science, I hadn't been programming for a number of years. And I just couldn't see going back that way. So I was really uncertain what to do. So my wife in those days was the school board president. And we often went to the school board conference downtown at the Hyatt, and they have a trade show, and I would walk it as a guest. Well, this time I walked it as a guest with the intent of finding a job. And I would just talk to everybody. And there was this one guy who had this very shabby booth. It was not very fancy, but he had an interesting piece of software. It was a web app, a SaaS app, which was a new thing in those days. And it allowed people, parents, to log online and see their kids' grades. And you're probably all very familiar with this, but back in those days, that was a very new idea. And he and I got talking, and about a week later, I tried the software, I liked it, and he offered me a job doing sales, pure to commission, and I agreed to do it. And to my surprise, I taught myself sales, and it was actually a lot of fun. And it took a couple of years, but soon I was making the same kind of money that I was making at Lucent as a manager. And soon, and later on, I was making a lot more money than I ever did. And I just really, really fell into it. Soon I was the vice president of sales. And not only was I being a salesperson, but I was actually teaching sales to people. And that was really, really great. And all this stuff about selling with confidence and all those kinds of things, and this talk here that I want to bring up today, it all comes from that experience. I'm not a guy like other salespeople. I didn't have lemonade stands when I was a kid. You know, we were competitive. I was a nerdy engineer, but I really believe that anybody can become proficient at sales, which is why I started this podcast called Sales Babble, Selling Secrets for Non-Sellers. And it's all about people who have a passion, who have a belief in something that they're all about. And even though they don't think of themselves as salespeople, they somehow come to the realization that if I really want to persuade people and if I really want to make a difference in the world, I have to be somewhat better at doing this. And that's what we talk on that podcast. And from that, these days, I have a podcast agency called Habanero Media, which helps B2B companies boost their brand and their authority and their influence and trust with the magic of podcasting. And podcasting is just another form of sales. It is the It is content marketing. It's where podcasting is actually the new blogging, and that's what's come from that. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. Today I want to talk about LinkedIn. And if you do have any questions while I'm talking, if I'm not really clear, sometimes I tend to babble, like sales babble. Don't hesitate to reach out and ask a question. LinkedIn, as you can see on this slide here, there's like 600 million business professionals on there. I think I saw a study that said like the average person makes over $100,000 a year. These people are educated. They're for the most part educated, or the most part fairly wealthy. It's an opportunity for each of us to build our own personal brands, because even though you never own your job, but you do own your profession. It's a great place to research companies, research employees, so that you can decide whether or not you want to go work there. But for salespeople, it's a great place to do networking. It's a great place to keep on top of the industry news. And for me, it's a way of building my own personal Rolodex. No matter where I go, where I work, what I do, these contacts are people that I know specifically. With that said, there's a lot of selling myths out there that are kind of baloney, like great sellers talk people into buying. That's not true. Great sellers are assertive. They're arrogant. They're overly chatty. That's not necessarily true. That being rejected is a big part of selling, and you just need to suck it up and get used to it. That doesn't necessarily have to be true either. And then the last thing is you got to be you have to have a killer instinct and an uber competitiveness in order to be successful. That isn't true either. Lots of times when you see personal networking, and I bring this up for a moment because that's what kind of LinkedIn is. It's a networking space. I don't know how many times I've been to networking events. In fact, Johnny G and I were just chatting about Aurora Business United, where you bump into somebody, you shake their hand, and you ask them what do you do, and they just start spitting out all the benefits of the thing that they sell. Don't try to qualify me. Don't try to understand whether or not I'm even an appropriate person to purchase that. And they just go on and on. And then they don't even follow up. They don't ask if I even know anybody who might be appropriate or anything like that. That is like the wrong way to do networking. There's a better way of doing networking. And what I like to do is tell a story to kind of like better frame this. So consider the possibility that you're at work and you're sitting at your desk, 10 o'clock in the morning, and then all of a sudden on your phone, somebody calls you. You look at the phone, and it's somebody that you deeply love, somebody that's really important to you. And you ask them, hey, what's up? What's going on? And they tell you, I was just in a car accident. What do you think is the first thing you would say to them? What most people would say is something along the lines like, are you okay? Was anybody hurt? Is there anything I can do? Do you want me to call somebody for you? Do you want me to come get you? Do you want me to cover something that you can't cover because you're in this car accident? Those are the kinds of things I think the average person would say. And the interesting thing about those things is that they're all questions, every single one of them. What you wouldn't do is you wouldn't like lecture them and say, this is what I want you to do. I want you to pull out your phone and take photographs of the car, take photographs of the car that hit you, take photographs of the police officer. I want you to get all of their insurance card information. I want you to get the badge number of the police officer. You want to be telling them what to do. You would be asking questions about, how can I help you? We know how to do this. This is baked into being a human being. But salespeople don't often do that. If we go back to that networking event that I spoke before, often people are telling you, you need to buy my stuff because it's good for you. You need to do what I tell you. But that's not how great sales works whatsoever. Instead, the buying process, instead of really having a sales process, what we really need to understand is that there is a buying process, a process of asking questions, authentically listening, and then seeing if we can help them. Buyers buy when they trust people. They often buy, for the vast majority of people buy by feelings. Do they feel like this is the right solution for them? Is this the right answer to their troubles or for their hopes and aspirations? And then they often justify with facts. People tend to sell fact-wise, but they don't sell by feelings-wise. And the thing is, you kind of got to get the feeling in place first before people can truly trust you. And there's a way of doing this. And the way I kind of frame this is, great sellers have heat, H-E-A-T. And each of these letters stands for something that sellers, behaviors that sellers should have. So picture yourself. So let me ask you these questions. On a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being not very strong and 5 being very strong, how helpful are you naturally in life? How empathetic are you to the troubles and problems that people have? Can you self-identify with them? Third, how astute, how smart are you at making connections and understanding situations in a clear way that other people don't, struggle with? That you can take a murky thing, a murky situation, and clarify it for other people. And then the fourth thing, how tenacious are you in following up and not letting go of a problem until it's all the way solved. When you do all these things, this is where trust comes. And if you can build trust with people, you'll have customers for life. It's hard to pick and choose. If you look at it from the buyer's point of view, there's many choices out there. There used to be 2 or 3 in the world of commodities. Now there's just an infinite supply. People really do have problems and aspirations they want to solve, but they're afraid that it's going to be the wrong choice. So instead, most of the competition that you really have is doing nothing. So you need to answer this question. Why would somebody buy from you? Answer this question clearly. And these are the things that I have in consulting that I bump into all the time, that people can't answer these questions very clearly. Like, how do you bring value to the market? Do you understand your buyer's industry as well as they do, if not better? Do you understand the benefits that your customers would experience if indeed they were to accept your product or services? And what all that comes down to is, do you understand your value proposition? Value proposition is, I like to have, I have a little template here that I often use, and you might want to write this down as we're speaking and think in terms of your own value proposition. But it should be as clear as that you help some set of people, a narrow set of people, with a specific problem or desire. And you do this by providing some solution, some product or service, so that they experience a set of benefits. For example, let's say I have founded an IT MSP company. And you could say something like this, that we help CEOs in the IT sector who need to grow service contract revenue. We do this by providing website services to them so that they'll generate qualified leads that convert into loyal clients. So it's a very snappy way of saying exactly who you are, who you serve, the benefits that they experience, and what the solution is. Very tight. Lots of people, when they're asked, who are you, what do you guys do, they go on with paragraphs of explanation. but it should be super duper clear what your value proposition is. And the reason is this is what we're going to need to use when we start doing LinkedIn outreach. The thing that's most important is no matter how slick of talker you are or fast or glib or anything like that, what's mostly important is if you have value, people will buy. If you don't have people, no matter how quick you are, they are not going to buy. The product or service that you have, it must clearly have value, and it must, and it's best if it stands out from the rest. It's like, got another story. I'm in the story mode these days. Let's say, you do a drive up, and I'm just going to pick on McDonald's, but it doesn't have to be McDonald's. And I have it clear in my mind that I want a quarter pounder. So I pull up, and the first thing that they ask is, hi. They would say, would you be interested in today's special? It's I don't know, a tofu burger or something. And the first thing I'm going to say is, no, I do not want that. And they would say, okay, what would you like? And I tell them, I want a quarter pounder. And then they would say, okay, is there anything else you would like? And I would say, no. And they would say, okay, it's $4.24. Pull up the window number 1, pay them. Then pull up the window number 2. Then they give you your food and you drive away. Like, that's a common scenario that all of us have experienced one time or another. I'd like to break this story down and how there was good selling and bad selling in that. The first thing that happened was when I walked up is I told them exactly what I'm looking for. No, first thing I did when I told up was they told me, would you want this tofu? They started pushing a product on me that I didn't want. And they didn't get that sale. I said no. But when they stopped and started asking me questions, what would I like? I told them I wanted the quarter pounder. Now, if I had said I wanted a Burger King Whopper, they would have said no, right? Because they're not Burger King. They don't sell Whoppers. So, then I said I wanted the quarter pounder. They went and checked and see if they had it. They hadn't run out, because there has been beef shortages. I guess that's a possibility. They did have it indeed, and then we did an exchange for money. I gave them money, they gave me a burger, and off I went. That's actually one of the best ways that sales works. We talked about Whoppers and Big Macs. It all comes down to branding. Branding is really the thing that differentiates you from the rest. Don't find customers for your products. Find products for your customers. This all goes in what I've been talking about from the very beginning here. Great LinkedIn prospecting is all about understanding your buyer. It's all about understanding that there's a buyer process, and that if you walk in that, and if you work within that context, you can be successful. According to Seth Godin, one of my favorite marketers, you need to find a way to stand out in a field of monochrome Holsteins. You're driving out in the country, there's a whole bunch of cows out there, all brown, black and white, but one stands out. It's the purple cow. The purple cow is the one that everybody points to. That's what you want to be. You want to be a purple cow. In fact, Seth Godin wrote a whole book on this. We won't go into that today. So now we've kind of set this foundation on the right mindset for LinkedIn selling, that it's buyer-centric. I'd like to get started and talk about this. I want to talk about how to acquire leads, how to qualify them, how to make a pitch, how to get an appointment with them, and then how to close that deal. Sound good? First, let's talk about how to target companies. You want to look for companies who are a good fit for you. And there's lots of places where you can go to get leads. You could Google companies who in your location, like type in the city, like we could type in Chicago, because I don't live too far from Chicago. and you could type in companies of that nature, within that industry, and you could get leads that way. Another thing you could do is you could go to a chamber of commerce, and every chamber of commerce has a list of companies that are members. These are all companies who have budget. These are all companies that have money. You can go to trade show exhibitors. You could look at the last time the trade show conference was held. You can find a list of all the people that attended, or you can find all the people who exhibited there that you might want to sell if you're in a B2B business. You could go to state governments, and there are lists of everybody who's in municipalities and school districts and fire departments, all the way down to who the director or the superintendent is, with their emails and their addresses. You can go to libraries that have the A to Z database, or Reference USA, or Hoover's, or Sales Genie, or Standard & Poor's. Lots of libraries have them for free. You can go in those libraries, even if you're not a member, and you could do a search and print out who are all the CEOs, the founders, the executives within a company, and you can get a big list of names. It would export them into a CSV file. From that file, then, you can then go look up their companies, the company name actually on LinkedIn. You type into the search bar up at the top. That's where you put the name of the company, and it will come up with a web page that, as you can see, it says www.linkedin.com/ the company name. Like if you looked up Sales Babble, you would see it. There's a company web page there from LinkedIn. From that, if you click on that, it will tell you who are all the employees in that company. Now, it's not the definitive list of all the people that are employed by that company. It's actually crowdsourced. When people build their LinkedIn profiles, there's a place where you would say who you work for, and it will link. When you say I work for this company, it will then link you to that. So if people don't keep up their LinkedIn profiles, they may not show up. People who used to work there and quit working, they may be on that list, but they don't work there anymore. But this is a start. So for example, here, this company that I picked here, they actually have 19 employees that were noticed on LinkedIn. They actually have a lot more employees than that, but there's 19 names on there. You take a look at those names, and you look for people who you think might be decision makers, or people who might be able to sashay you into the company. It could be the founder or the president, CEO. It could be a high executive like a CFO, a CMO, a CTO, a chief revenue officer, a CRO. It could be a sales manager or a marketing director. These are all kinds of people that might be decision makers who might be a good fit for you to talk to. So you pick out some of those people, and to the right of their name, there's going to be a connect button. You click on that connect button, and up's going to pop a little note. Now, what most people do is they just click send now, and they connect with them. They don't explain who they are. Would people just see random people connecting with them? They often just delete that or ignore that. Let me turn my noises off here. Instead, I'm a strong believer in taking a 2x2 moment. Take a couple minutes, look at their profile, see how you have a common thread with them. Since you're probably both in the same industry and you can help them because they're in that industry, that might very well be something that is common. Also, too, they might have a hobby, or they might gone to a school that you know about, that you're connected with somehow. You went there, or somebody that you know went there, something along those lines. I've got an example here. It would be something along the lines like you might say, hey, John, I see that you're at XYZ company. I'm in the ABC industry too. I'd like to connect with other people in the industry, especially those who are local. Thanks, Pat. And I make it sound friendly. It's not too long. It's not 5 paragraphs. Probably many of you seen on LinkedIn where people like copy and paste 5 paragraphs that have their whole value proposition and this whole ask in there, and this call to action and links and all that. That's not what I'm talking about. Something much simpler. So then what we're going to do is we're going to do a simple process of, we're going to first connect with them on LinkedIn. We're going to wait. This is a game of patience. When they connect, we're going to send them an in-mail message saying, thanks for connecting. We might even wait a little bit longer afterwards, and then another week later, actually try to reach out to them and see if they might be interested in actually chatting. Or if you never hear from them, which is possible, because some people hardly ever log in to LinkedIn. In fact, the busier the person, the less they often log in, unless they're in the marketing space. So then you can send them an email. So then the question is like, well, where do I find their emails? Sometimes people put their emails in the LinkedIn profile. Other times they don't. But I'll show you how to find their email in a moment. Let's start with the messaging. And it would be very similar if we did the email. I would say, thanks for connecting. I appreciate it. I'm looking for some advice on a project we're starting. I've got a plan I'd like to run by you. I really appreciate your thoughts. You're an expert. It would be really awesome if you could help me. Would you be open for a meeting for coffee? And in these cases, these pandemic times, may not be so much for coffee, but a Zoom call or something like that. And with that said, I do have my coffee here. To send an email, we would probably do something, we would probably send something very similar. I think I have an example coming up. But it begs the question, like, where is their email? I'm a strong believer. I really like this tool called hunter.io. If you type in the name of a company, the domain name into it, it will tell you what it thinks from looking at all the emails that are out in the world, what is the pattern that most makes sense for that company. So for example, if you look at the third bullet here, it's got F and then last and then at thedomainname.com. So that means if we're looking for John Smith, it's probably his email is jsmith@website.com. That's not true for everybody. Sometimes the founders just have their first name. It could be john@website.com. But it's actually pretty right 8 out of 10 times. In fact, sometimes the person that you're looking for, if you put their name in, it'll actually find them. It actually knows a lot of people's emails within the system. This is what the tool looks like. It's totally free, hunter.io. You can see you put in the company name.com, the domain name in, click to find email address, and up it pops. Super cool tool. And then I would send an email, and you can see this looks a lot like the LinkedIn in-mail message that I sent. I sent you a link, but I'm following up on that now, right? So first I sent a connect. Now I sent them a LinkedIn message. Now I'm sending an email message that says, I sent you a LinkedIn request. Every time you reach out to people, you should always have a reason. I'm looking for some advice on a project we're starting. I got a plan I'd like to run by you. Would appreciate your thoughts, your advice. Would you be open to meeting next week sometime? Just that simple. If people are open to have a conversation, in fact, I often make the assumption that the people I'm talking to are not going to be buyers, but I do have the assumption that everybody I talk to might know somebody who's a great buyer, right? As I said, we're just looking for people who are showing up on the LinkedIn company. It may not be the right person. It may not be the decision maker. We're just looking for people who might be able to help us find who that right person is. This is a long game. This takes time. And again, I like this idea of advice because in many regards, that's actually what you're doing. What you're doing is trying to figure out, is this, especially if you're starting up a new product, if you're rolling out a new product or a new service, you're doing market research to a certain degree to see if they might be open to, if they agree that they have these problems or this set of aspirations and hopes and dreams that they're looking for, that a product that you have might be a good fit, that they're the kind of people who would maybe purchase this, qualified for that. And it also kind of creates curiosity because people are often interested in new kinds of things. These days, it's actually surprisingly easy to get a hold of anybody. because a lot of people are still working at home right now, and they're flattered to have some kind of conversation, some kind of break in their day. So if you still haven't heard from them yet, the next thing you can do is call them up. So you can see I'm not really a strong proponent of just calling people out of the blue, cold calling. Hopefully by now they've gotten a connect request, they've gotten a LinkedIn message, they've gotten an email, they may have actually gotten a couple LinkedIn mails. So this is around the 5th time. And what you're doing is you just look for the telephone on their website, and they might have a directory. Many of them do. If they don't, if you call them up, it may say dial by name, which is awesome. And if they don't, then they may actually have somebody who answers the phone. If they answer, I would be very, very clear with them and say, hey, it's Pat. I'm the guy that's been messaging you on LinkedIn. Remember, I have this project I'm working on. I wonder if I could get in. I wonder if you have a moment, if you could set aside a time where we could chat about that. And again, every time I reach out to them, every time I make a phone call to somebody, I have it for a reason. What's the reason I'm calling them? I'm following up on the LinkedIn message, or following up on the email that I sent them, whatever the last thing that you did. If it's a gatekeeper, who is that person who answers the phone, that's what they call that person, just act like you're a client. And I would say something along those like, hey, I'm looking for John, is he in? And they would say, no, he's not. And I would say, could I leave a message? And they would probably say, sure. Well, actually, I said here, it's about the email that I sent on Tuesday. And they would say, sure. And they'd send you the voicemail. And then you leave a voicemail that sounds an awful lot like the other messages that we have. Unlike emails that often go to spam and in-mails that are not often read because they don't log in a lot, everybody listens to their voicemail. And let's just say you call them up and they don't get back to you, and you call them up. Let's say you call 3 times. Oftentimes, I would just ask the gatekeeper and say, I'm trying to get a hold of John to follow up on the email that I sent on Tuesday. If you were me, what would you do to connect with them? And often they give you coaching. They'll say, you got to call before 7, or you got to call at 4, or it doesn't work on Fridays, or only works on these days. People are surprisingly nice if you just ask and be nice and not pushy. I call this the 3x3 rule, where what we're doing is we start with LinkedIn, we try to connect with them, we try to send them a message, and then after that we send an email. And after that, sending an email, and the email says I'm following up the LinkedIn message. And then I do a phone call that says I'm following up on the email. And then I get back on LinkedIn and say I'm following up on the phone message that I left for you. And then you do the loop again, and you do the loop again. That's 3 times. 3 times 3 is what? 9, right? All the studies show that you have to follow up with people multiple times. Now, you might think that this sounds pushy. You might think that you're going to be annoying them. That's not the case at all. Lots of times, these outreaches that you're doing, they're never even getting them. The emails are going to spam, or they're not keeping up on their voicemails, or they're not keeping up on their LinkedIn messages. I know I'm guilty of that myself. So finally, one of them or 2 of them is going to hit, and surprisingly, people are really nice. Now, last year I was doing an awful lot of this, working with a client. I actually had to do this 4 times to get some people. I had to do 12 times, and when you got them on the phone, they were like, "Oh, I've been meaning to get back to you. Oh, yes." Yes, we're not doing that anymore, or something like that, which is awesome. You just want some kind of information. This is how, if you target people that you really want to become new clients, this is how you connect with them. And you just rinse and repeat this. LinkedIn, email, call. LinkedIn, email, call. LinkedIn, email, call. It's all about tenacity. It's all about that mindset of like, I wake up in the morning and I look and see, is it time? It's a few days since the last time I sent them an email message. Now it's time for me to send them an email. And you just mark it off. The Topo report for 2019, I was just looking at this the other day. It said that if you use all three of these things to try to connect with people, you got a 1 out of 3 chance, which is pretty darn good, of connecting with the person and actually talking to them. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to buy. It doesn't even mean that they're qualified. But that's the only way you're going to be able to make, that's the only way you're going to be able to know whether or not they're a good fit for your company or not. This is not about being pushy. It's just about being tenacious. It's pushy when you connect people without a note and make assumptions on them. It's pushy when you start pitching stuff with them, like you're explaining all the benefits and all the features that your stuff has without really letting them talk. And it's pushy if you send them long emails that are really hard to read and stuff like that. That's for the marketing people. We're not talking about marketing here. We're talking about sales. This is about really being personal with people. It's very similar to like when you're meeting someone in person. You wouldn't, like some people do, but the right thing to do is have a real conversation, a real dialogue. It's like, this is our company, this is what we do, this is how we help people. Does that sound like something that's a fit for you? And again, as I said, the key to playing this and being successful here is all about following up. Follow up, follow up, follow up. It's about patience, tenacity, and it's about grit. So how do we schedule a sales call then? Let's say you do get them on the phone and then you're chit-chatting with them about them. This is where you come out with your value proposition. You would say something like, John, we help companies like yours who have this set of problems, and we do that by providing some value. And what's the value that we're commonly talking about with business? The top 5 ones are like revenue, they want to make more money. Profit, they want to have better margins. Cost, they want to lower their cost. Quality, they want to raise their quality. Time, they want to shorten their intervals. Or frustration, they want to lower that. These are the kind of things that people struggle with all the time. But if you're selling to people, it could be things like happiness and peace and wellness and adventure and joy. You know, if you're selling timeshares and things like that, these are the things that you may be speaking to with people. Think about all the problems they have and then flip the benefits. Look at falling revenue, smaller profits, rising costs, lower quality, longer time, higher frustration. Those are the things, if you ask people, do you have falling revenue? Do you have smaller profits? Do you have rising costs? That's something they can address. And if you let people talk for like 20 minutes about what the problems are, the more they talk, the more likely they're going to be willing to purchase what you have. Again, how do you help? We help specific types of companies and people who have specific needs and desires by providing a solution where they experience a set of benefits. And then the pitch is that you? When you're talking to somebody, does that sound like you? And when they say, yeah, it is, that's your pitch. So then it comes to closing the deal. It's pretty straightforward. We've talked about the problems that they're facing. You get them to say, do you think from what I've been talking here makes sense for you? And you keep asking them, what are all their problems? You build a list of all the problems that they have, all the aspirations they have, and they says, I might be able to help you. Let me show you what I have. And then when it gets done to closing the deal, it's just like, look, we marked off everything on your list. It looks like this might be a good fit, right? And of course, they're going to, hopefully, if all goes right, they're going to say, yeah. That's bridging the trust gap. Real trust, according to Seth Godin, doesn't always come from divulging, from providing more transparency, but from actions that people take before our eyes. If they see in front of them that I ask them about their problems, I let them speak about the things that they're struggling with, that I walk through their very list, the list that we created with them, and we checked off that I can help some of these things. Maybe some things I can't, but some of the things I can. Then it gets down to the bottom of, I would then say, From what I see here, it looks like we might be a good fit for you, right? And if you've done this right, they're going to say sure, and they're going to want to proceed. I'd like to finish up with my last and final story. Like, a lady's walking down the street, and she goes by a dress shop, and she sees a dress in the window. It's a beautiful dress. It's a dress exactly for this event that she has on Saturday night. She walks into the store. She steps up to the shopkeeper and says, "Ma'am, I would like to try on that dress in the window." And the shopkeeper says, "Absolutely, ma'am, but you might be more comfortable doing that in the changing room." That shopkeeper was really listening to that lady. She knows what she meant. What she said is not what she meant, but she knows what she really meant. She did that by really listening, by being astute, by being helpful, by being patient. That's what makes for great sales. And that's what you can do. If you can do that on LinkedIn, if that's the attitude you want to have, you can be very, very successful. So in conclusion, slow down when you're selling. Give people time to get to know you. Be clear who exactly you help and why you help them. Ask questions about problems, challenges, aspirations, hopes, and dreams that they have. And then listen. Listen really well. Write it all down. Help them. You may not have everything to help them, but maybe you know somebody that can help them. Make friends. In a non-transactional world, which is where a lot of B2B sales is at, these things take a long time. It can take multiple meetings, multiple emails, and LinkedIn messages. This can take a long time. This is all about being patient. It takes time to build trust and to build a relationship. This isn't transactional, like going to a supermarket. But in time, B2B sales can be very, very rewarding. I've got a book, a little ebook. I think it's 15 pages, and it explains how to use a LinkedIn message. It explains how to build a LinkedIn profile so that people are attracted to you and will follow you. I have a client right now, a consulting client that I earned 2 years ago, purely on my profile. They read my profile, they saw exactly who I do and what I do, and I'm crystal clear. That's part of what this book tells you, how to be crystal clear. And I still have them today. If you'd like this book, you can send me an email at pathomer@salesbabble.com. You can go to salesbabble.com. There's a sign up on there. It automatically goes to you. Either way. That's all I got for today. That did take about 45 minutes. Any questions? Nope. No questions? Oh, it looks like you are muted. You are muted. I'll unmute you. Oh, there it goes.
Hi. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was trying to do two things at once. I just wanted to say thank you. I thought you did a really great job. And one of the things that I think is really interesting about this is that, I mean, you know, I work with people who are looking for jobs. This is exactly what I teach people to do when they're looking for jobs. Almost exactly. So I'm going to call you and I'm going to ask you to present to my job searching people.
I'd be happy to do that.
Because this is what I tell people all the time. And it's great advice. It's great advice.
There's a notion that when you're selling for a company, the first thing people buy is you, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Just like when you're doing job, just like when you're looking for a job,
Yep.
people have to trust you first, then the company, and then the product.
Yep. I think that's absolutely true. Regardless of what you're selling, whether it's a widget or yourself into a VP role, whatever it is, that's the way I think it has to go. And I think you did a really great job of explaining it all, and I love the stories that you used to illustrate all the way through, and I mean, it makes sense.
It does make sense. This is the best way to get a job. A lot of people can spend a lot of time submitting their resume into the website, the HR website, and it just goes into a black hole.
Right.
I have a friend who does that, and she says, we just get so much stuff, it's all we can do to like deal with that. We got some software that we run through that may pull out names for specific things that we're looking for. It just does a keyword search on the resume. The best thing to do is to reach out to a hiring manager, build a relationship with them. That's the best way.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you. And that is also what I try to tell people. The challenge that I find is that in order for people to have the ability to do that, in many cases, you have to bolster their confidence first. You have to help them learn to believe in themselves and to feel confident in their self-efficacy. Otherwise, they don't have the ability to pick up the phone and make that call. And that's one of the things that makes Do-Over.me a little bit different, a little sales pitch here, from a lot of career coaches, is that we help you build up that confidence because we know how important that is to actually getting a job and to doing all these things like you're talking about here in order to get a job. So I got to go because I got a 2 o'clock call too, but thank you so much.
Good to connect with you again.
I'm sorry?
Good to connect with you again.
Yeah, it always is. It always is. And you will be hearing from me about scheduling this. So thanks a lot, Pat. I really appreciate it.
We'll see you.
Bye.
Here. Hey, Alex.
Hey, Pat.
Your video just came on.
I got to second that. Yeah, I was with my video off. I also have a sales meeting at 2. Thank you so much for this. This is awesome. Great stuff. And I will be reaching out to you also towards this, right?
Cool.
Bye.
Cool beans. Any other questions? If not,
Are you going to share the slides?
I can. Yes.
I can't write that fast. Or is it best to just use the book? Would that be better?
No, the book's different. The slides are different.
Oh, okay.
The book is really about how to set up your LinkedIn profile.
Oh, gotcha.
Why don't I put this is a Google Doc. Why don't I share the link in I could put it could put it in the chat here, but I think it'll go in a little bit.
You can put it in the meetup.
I could put it in the meetup, but I also did it in another place. I did some other places. I'll make sure and stick it in the meetup. And if anybody, and if people didn't register through the meetup, they registered through LinkedIn, just email me, and I'll be more than happy to share it with them.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thanks. I gotta scoot and make a phone call. Thanks so much. It was a great presentation.
Here. We'll see y'all.
Yeah.
There is something. There's something in the chat here. What does the chat say? Or a replay. Yes. Paul said or a replay. I did make a recording of this. I'll probably put it on YouTube and then share it sometime on Sales Babble. It'll show up on there. So again, email me and I can tell you when I post that up. When I post that on YouTube.